we discuss issues that matter to the people. And on the program today, we are discussing another interesting topic, disability issues and elections, as well as incidents of violence that have occurred. What effects do they have in terms of, as far as participation is concerned for persons with disabilities? We will be unpacking a number of issues, and my guest on the program today is coming from the Zambia Federation of Disability Organizations, ZAFOD, and I'm hosting the program's manager, Mr. Meshek Mutamba. Thank you for coming to the program.
Thank you so much, dear. Good evening, viewers.
We are glad that you could find time to be part of the program to interact with our viewers.
Sure, I'm grateful for the opportunity extended to us.
Well, our dear viewers, you also be part of the program by calling in on the numbers that will be scrolling on your screens. As we get to the nitty-gritties of the program, we just want to understand what is ZAFOD. What does ZAFOD represent?
Thank you so much. ZAFOD stands for Zambia Federation of Disability Organizations. And it's a federation, as by the name, Zambia Federation. So we are a federation, meaning that we have affiliate members who are affiliated to us. So we are a national umbrella organization, okay, that is the umbrella civil society organization that coordinates the work of organizations for persons with disabilities, whom we call OPDs. Yeah, so these are affiliated to us, so we capacity build them and coordinate the disability movement through our affiliate members. Collectively, our mandate, our national mandate, is to promote and protect the rights of persons with disabilities, to ensure that their human rights, disability rights, their dignity, and their freedoms are promoted and protected. So in a nutshell, that's our national mandate. But I would like to just add that in Zambia, persons with disabilities are the most marginalized groups of citizens.
Why do you say so?
Yes, why I say that is because they are surrounded by a massive negative attitude towards them. You do agree with me that in Zambia, when a child is born with a disability, they are considered to be a case from God. So you find that we have found cases where even the next door neighbor doesn't know that there's a child born with a disability. They are hidden. As a result, persons with disabilities are not provided with human development services. So even when later on in their life you talk about them participating in the governance of the country, participating in national development, participating in social and public life, it's a mockery. Because for you and I to sit here and engage each other, intellectually, it's because our forefathers cared to take us to school, cared to provide human development services to us. So these who are not provided, they cannot effectively participate because they cannot engage intellectually because they had no opportunity to be provided with the human development services. Why? Because they were considered incapable of developing. They were considered a case from God. And so our mandate is very massive. We begin by informing the nation, educating the nation, appealing to the consciences of citizens that persons with disabilities are humans like everybody else. And that's why at ZAFOD, we don't call them the disabled. We don't call them the handicapped, differently able. There's no human who is differently able. The abilities are in the head. We all demonstrate our abilities by our intellect, not by our physical appearance. So we say persons with disabilities, recognizing the human being before we see the impairment or the disability.
Now, that brings me to another issue. What other area of focus do you focus on as an organization in terms of, we've seen climate change being a topical subject in our country, but are you also taking an interest in as far as the effects of climate change and disability issues?
Absolutely. In fact, most of our cooperating partners are very keen to see us be part of the global drive to address issues of climate change. Climate change at global level it may be beyond our capacity as ZAFOD. But at local level, by speaking to our people, we begin to change the attitudes towards how we manage our environment. In Zambia, again, this is a country where we are pathetically careless when it comes to managing our environment. We do not demonstrate appreciation for the beauty of a clean environment. You'd agree with me that in Zambia you see a family driving in a very beautiful car, and then you see a plastic thrown out, or a peel of banana thrown out of the window, falling on the road, plastics all over, diapers and stuff. You woke up in the morning, you find your neighbors come with a truckload of rubbish and dumped by the edge of your yard. So it speaks to our cultural orientation. We have failed even just to manage our own children, to inculcate a clean culture, so that collectively we can best manage our environment. And then speaking about how does it affect persons with disabilities, we are saying they are the most marginalized. Most of them are vulnerable. They are economically poor. They are found in the streets begging. So when the effects of climate change begin to hit back on humanity, who are the most affected? It's those who are in the poor category. So they are the recipients of what we do, those of us who have access to resources and do not manage our refuge properly. The refuse that we create.
Interesting. Now, we also get now into issues that we think are pertinent. Our countries are holding general elections this year, and to be specific, the voting day is on the 12th of August of 2021. We just want to get your perspective prior to the general elections. There were issues of constitutionalism, where we saw amendments, proposed amendments to the Constitution. And one of the issues that was pertinent in that process was the issue of the mixed member electoral system, which failed. But how significant was that to the disability movement?
So before we come to really the nitty-gritty of the MMES, I think at this point, let me make a very important statement about ZAFOD, that ZAFOD is a non-government organization. Having said that, we are not a political party. Yes, this is very important for our listeners. Yeah, also given the period in which we are.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so our work, like I stated earlier, focuses on uplifting the well-being of persons with disabilities across the country. And so when you talk about persons with disabilities, we are not talking about strangers or people from another planet. We are talking about our own beloved ones, our wives, our husbands, schoolmates, workmates, neighbors, people close to our heart. So these are the ones we are saying we uplift their well-being, and so that they can enjoy rights like anybody else. And when we talk about the rights of persons with disabilities, it's cross-cutting. Yeah, it can be civil, it can be political, it can be social, cultural, all the rights that you and I enjoy, those of us considered not to have disabilities. Yeah, so depending on our cooperating partner, their area of interest. Maybe their area of interest is that persons with disabilities should be seen more in governance issues. They should participate in the governance of the country. Others will say we want to ensure that persons with disabilities access education, access health care, access the assistive devices. So it's very important for the listeners to appreciate that the work of ZAFOD is not just to talk about political inclusion or political participation. We are talking about across the board the rights of persons with disabilities to be dignified as human beings. Then they can individually choose what they want to participate in. You see, for participation to be meaningful, it first of all should be freely, and a free expression that I want to participate in politics, I want to participate in agriculture, I want to participate in this type of of development agenda based on my personal interest and my needs. But I cannot effectively participate if my capabilities have not been built. Yeah. So you see the holistic approach that we have. Yeah. So we look at every aspect. Then we come into the MMES discussion, because we are saying MMES will directly lead to effective participation or inclusion of this marginalized group of citizens into the governance of the country.
Now that it failed because it was part of Butane, and that process could not take effect. But there's still hope on the government that a political party that will form the next government to bring that close to ensure that persons with disabilities fully participate in the electoral system. So we want to also get your perspective now that we are into the electoral cycle. How do you rate the participation of persons with disabilities as it stands in terms of adoptions? Are you seeing a number of your members being incorporated?
That's a very important question at this point. But although you've mixed it up, yeah, maybe let me start with the first point. The MMES is not for 2021 elections. Yeah, mind you, MMES is a major overhaul of the electoral system, okay, introducing a mixed electoral system from the current first past the post that has been practiced since independence. So it's a long-term, initiative by cooperating partners that Zambia brings to, enacts revise the constitution on the aspect of what electoral model suits the country that will allow self-representation of the different groups of citizens across the country. And so probably citizens then would feel, they are advancing their own, their own interests and agendas in the governance and development of the country. Yeah, and so that's a different question. But there's also a question you asked on how do you rate the participation of persons with disabilities, probably in this year's general election.
Exactly.
Okay, so ZAFOD, as role has been to link interested persons with disabilities with the party of their choice and where they want to stand to be elected. Actually, when you interrogate the records, you find that there are very few cases, maybe 1% or so, where persons with disabilities have said they want to be elected into office. They have been voters all along, choosing others to go and represent them who are not persons with disabilities. Yeah, but it also brings us back to the issue of systemic exclusion. Persons with disabilities are systemically excluded from public life, be it political, be it development. Yeah, whatever the conversation you can bring to the table, it brings you back to what I said. They are systemically excluded from development, dialogue and conversation and agenda at the time they are born. Yeah. If a human being is not provided with human development services, like we talk about education, health, nutrition, devices, social interaction, personal security, these services build a human being into one who can effectively participate in national development. So having said that, you find that you can create leadership space, you can create economic space, but do persons with disabilities are prepared to occupy those spaces, those leadership spaces that you are creating? What about the perceptions of the voters, the perceptions of the political parties? Because what we see in elections is competitive. They want to showcase their best candidate. So they are thinking if a person with a disability on a wheelchair moves to the platform to address voters, what will be the reaction? So for now, I would say those who have been requesting to be linked to political parties, we have made those efforts, but the adoption rate is very, very low because of some of the reasons that I've shared here. One is the general public has a very negative attitude towards a candidate with a disability. That's number one. Number two, their capabilities, most of them are not built. And when we see them in the street, we don't even realize that we have created beggars ourselves as society. Yeah, because we have not taken an affirmative action to ensure that our beloved ones who have disabilities are equally provided opportunities to acquire education, which is an equalizer for every human being.
Well, in case you are just joining us, we are discussing disability issues in as far as governance is concerned. You can also participate on the program by dialing the numbers that are scrolling on your screens. My guest on the program is coming from Zaford, and that's the program's manager, Mr. Meshach Mutamba. Now, we just want to also get your perspective. We've also, others have also challenged the disability movement to say there's no enough will or commitment, like platforms would be created, but you'd find that the persons with disabilities would not want to take up the spaces. And others are saying they have to show the zeal and the energy to demonstrate that they are willing to actually participate in the governance of the country. How do you take such sentiments that are being issued by other stakeholders?
Yeah, of course. Again, it comes down to some of the barriers that we have already alluded to. If you talk about political participation, for example, what comes to your mind immediately is political violence in Zambia. Yeah. I think we are famous in the world for that, probably. Is it being famous or infamous? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but picture a person with visual impairment. You cannot see anything around them. Yeah, and then you expect them to go to a rally and campaign, or even to go and listen to someone campaigning for elections. It's almost out of the question, because should violence break out, where does this person run to? Straight into the panga. You get the point. So we need to reflect as a people. Yeah, what kind of environment have we created for us? It's strange that we appear to be civilized human beings, but some of the things you see happening in the name of wanting to ascend to power, those who want to rule others, it leaves much to be desired. But if you are to digress and go to economic empowerment of persons with disabilities, a lot has been done in the past, including putting them in resettlements, including giving them loans to start businesses, trying to employ them, and so on. In most cases, if you work where I work in the disability sector, you really begin to agree with me on the gap of building their capacity first. A human being should be built the capacity first before you provide a space for them to reach their potential, to express themselves. Yeah, and so there was an argument to say there are those who are born leaders. And we still insisted, even a human being who is born a leader should first acquire an education. It's a prerequisite. If you are born a businessman, you should acquire an education. It's a prerequisite. How are you going to engage intellectually?
That brings me to another subject,
yes.
The issue of the grade 12. Is it a deterrent factor to persons with disabilities? Now that you're also putting it out to say
yes.
Leaders have to be
are they born or are they created?
You have to be empowered with knowledge to be able to articulate issues. Do you share the same view for persons with disability over the issue of the G12?
Absolutely. You know, in Zambia, acquiring grade 12 education is considered to be the basic and general education. You hear about general certificate of education. Grade 12 is the minimum requirement to be considered educated. It's not mandatory that you should go to university or you should go to college, but it's mandatory that you complete high school. Because after high school, you can fully, it's perceived that if that education was quality, you should be able to fully perceive the world around you. You should be able to engage anybody, intellectually. And you should not be seen to do things contrary to civilization. Yeah, and that's why it's believed that nations that have developed have invested heavily in education, because they believe that educated citizens are easy to engage. Okay, they prefer to engage intellectually, but they also acquire certain attitudes and like personal dignity. They have that ego that I'm educated, so there's a certain way I should behave. Yeah, so persons with disabilities are among the least educated. We have a few cases that we can showcase that demonstrate that persons with disabilities have the ability and the capability to be educated. We have, for example, Mr. Thomas Mtonga, who is a lecturer at the University of Zambia. My supervisor, my boss, is a federal director Mr. Bakali is a person with a disability. We have Mr. Wawa, who is a consultant, he's a person with a disability. I remember attending a workshop that he was facilitating. For 2 days, he's speaking without an outline, okay? Referring to legal provisions from global and national articles. Someone, you can see that this is very impressive. But you see, as society, we still want to feel that persons with disabilities do not have the capacity to participate in national governance, in national development, and to freely to live an independent, dignified life. It's not Christian even.
Well, you are still watching The Verdict. Just now we are going to take a short break, but stay tuned for more interesting issues that we'll bring out on this topic of discussion.
I'm Deborah Lukalu, all the way from South Africa. You are watching Camnet channel, not just another channel. God bless you. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. We thank you for staying tuned to the program. We are discussing disability issues under the electoral process and other issues pertaining to the disability movement. My guest on the program is coming from the Zambia Federation of Disability Organizations, ZAFOD, Mr. Meshek Mutamba, the program's manager. We just want to also get your views regarding now that ECZ is already on the issue of the printing of ballot papers. Have you engaged with ECZ? Are we going to also have issues like Braille ballot papers for the visually impaired? So we just want to get your perspective on that. What modalities are you recommending in as far as the printing of ballot papers is concerned?
Yes. Have we engaged with this is your question. Maybe at this point I would take you back to the famous suing of ECZ by Zambia Federation of Disability Organizations in 2011. Sela Brotherton and others suing ECZ. The issue at hand, the contention was ECZ has failed to provide a leveled voting field in terms of persons with disabilities being allowed to vote freely without someone to aid them. Yeah, and so ZAFOD won that case in the High Court of Zambia, and that was in 2011, long before I joined ZAFOD. Yeah, so ECZ was ordered by the High Court to begin to address all the issues that were contained in that court order. Yeah, and so among them was to ensure that polling stations have ramps where a voter who is on a wheelchair can take themselves up into the polling booth. Polling booths to have sufficient lighting, to have large print ballots, and to have what we call braille jackets for persons with visual impairment. Yeah, and so additionally also to ensure that polling stations have sign language interpreters. For a voter who cannot hear, they can only sign. Yeah. ECZ has been implementing that, but one of the recommendations we gave in recently was that because in November last year, ECZ called stakeholders to the table to update stakeholders on the progress made towards preparation for this year's election. And Zafford was called to represent the disability movement. Yeah, so one of the recommendations we made was let ECZ, insert a filter on disability, which we are hoping can also be filtered on the NRC. I think the NRC has a provision for peculiarities, or we wanted to specifically say disability. And the voters card also say disability. What type of, do you have a disability, type of disability or something like that? Now, for the ECZ, this is also beneficial to them, because then they would know that at such polling station number X, we are expecting these type of voters, because the register will show what type of disabilities are registered under that polling station. So you see what that means is if there is a person with visual impairment, then they will proactively provide a braille jacket for a person with visual impairment to vote freely. If they expect someone with partial sight, then they'll provide sufficient lighting and the large print. Yeah, if there is someone who is hard of hearing, or they are deaf, they can't hear completely, then they'll provide the sign language interpreter. Because then it will be very difficult for ECZ to prepare all these things, because it's expensive. Imagine to have sign language interpreters in all the polling stations in Zambia. But if you have filtered, you'll find they are just isolated cases where you put sign language interpreters, there are isolated cases where you put braille jackets, and so on.
So in other words, those statistics, have they been compiled by ECZ, or it's a process that you are looking towards ahead?
Yeah, it looks like work in progress. ECZ has become extremely busy and difficult to bring to the table anymore, but we've been writing to them through our desk, the electoral participation desk at our office. It's not, for us, it's not just those issues I've mentioned. It includes, including persons with disabilities in the other electoral processes, like voter education, voter registration, those registration officers and stuff. Why don't we have persons with disabilities? We can go to employment, why can't we have persons with disabilities? We can go to governance, why don't we have, when we can go to other aspects of development processes, why don't we have persons with disabilities? This is the question we keep asking everywhere. So ECZ is responding, but very, very slowly at the moment.
In case you are joining us, you can also participate on the program by calling the numbers that are scrolling on your screens. We are discussing issues to do with disabilities and the elections that we'll be holding as a country. Now, going on the program, we also want to find out the United Nations Convention on Persons with Disabilities is an important document which Zambia is also signatory to. I just want to find out, are you engaging these political parties to ensure that they also uphold, in as far as they uphold the commitments of the convention by domesticating various processes? Because issues that we are talking about here, they are recommended in that important piece of registrations. But how do you make sure that these important stakeholders are abreast with the contents of such an important convention, so that they can also make sure that as they operate, they also take into consideration issues to do with disability?
Okay, Patrick, on that one, I'll put it this way. For the UNCRPD, It's not political parties. It's the
government.
government.
But political parties form governments.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll come to that.
The PF is in government at the moment.
Yes.
So the PF...
so it's one political party at a time.
So we'll seek to renew the mandate to the Zambians.
Exactly.
Post the August 12 general elections. These opposition political parties also are trying to see if people can give them a chance.
Okay.
But now there are governments in waiting, but we also have the government of the day. But now going forward, those are issues I think that are pertinent to your members.
So I don't want to sound political. That's why I want to take you slowly.
So then we address it on a basis of a government.
Yes. So address it on a basis of a government because there's only one political party that forms government. Yeah. You see the role of of civil society organization with the UNCRPD is to come up with what is called a shadow report. Okay, so state parties across the world, agreed to say we are going to implement what is contained in the United Nations, Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So Zambia also, agreed to implement. So now UN wants to know. So they will ask the government of Zambia to submit a report on the progress they have made on implementing the UNCRPD. But that would not be fair to ask the person implementing to say, how well have you implemented? So UN also says, on the other side, we ask the beneficiaries, okay, organizations of persons with disabilities, to also submit a shadow report to counteract and so that we can compare and contrast. And since the government of the Republic of Zambia telling the truth in the progress they have made in implementing this important document, what are the organizations of persons with disabilities saying and those who are concerned, who are the direct beneficiaries on this implementation? You understand? So that's the role of government on the UNCRPD. Very, very important.
What are the recommendations of the shadow report? Is Zambia faring well?
I cannot discuss that here, but what I can mention is that we made a, when you prepare a report,
yes,
then you have a session with the UN, to report. And by the way, this is not just on politics. It's holistic. Yeah, it caters for every aspect of the UNCRPD on the rights of persons with disabilities. By the way, Patrick, persons with disabilities enjoy all human rights, but additionally they have disability rights. Like I referred to, we can refer to tax rebates. Okay, tax rebates for you as a person with a disability, but also for your employer can benefit. Yeah, you've heard of a concession where a person with a disability imports a car from Japan, and they just show their ID and they are exempted from paying, the import tax. Those are some of the benefits, additionally to all human rights. So even when you're preparing a shadow report, it takes you through what the government of Zambia, Republic of Zambia, is expected to do in ensuring that these rights of persons with disabilities are well addressed and actualized.
Yes, being a mother body, I am well aware that your member organizations, you have a lot of associations that are affiliated to to ZAFOD because as an umbrella organizations, we've seen some of them like advancing issues to do with albinism, others advancing issues to do with the blind. And some of the pertinent issues, let's say, to persons with albinism. One of their concerns has been that access to the sunscreen lotion, for instance, has been a challenge. And there are limited options for them because they also have challenges with sight. So you'd find that the education sector does not actually support them adequately to ensure that they are able to enjoy, express themselves fully, just like others would. So I want to find out how you look at these issues and seek to tackle them with relevant organizations.
Very important question there, Patrick. And our desire as ZAFOD is to see, to arrive at a point where the state can fully take up that responsibility. of providing, for instance, a sunscreen, providing education to persons with disabilities, ensuring that they are employed, and those who want to go into businesses are supported. Yeah, because persons with disabilities, when you define a disability, you are saying an impairment in me that slows me down as compared to you, either within myself or when I come in contact with environmental barriers. Environmental barriers are quite huge, including perceptions. Even when I do a business, there are perceptions for my buyers and my bank and everything around me. So they have special needs. Okay, they need reasonable accommodation. They need affirmative action from stakeholders to ensure that they are able to compete favorably and equally with those of us so-called able-bodied, which I don't agree that someone is able-bodied and the other one is not. Like I said earlier, our abilities are in our intellect. Yeah, but coming down to your point, for example, the persons with albinism. Yeah, so what we are saying is ZAFOD should not be looking for resources to buy sunscreens and distribute to persons with albinism, because that's not sustainable. You understand? So what we are saying is let the hospitals provide those sunscreen chemicals, especially for those who are perceived as economically unable to access such services. Now, you see, not just for the government of the day today, but all governments, mostly in poor countries, they have their song of limited resources. Okay, and so that even when you put up in the shadow report that the government of Zambia is unable to provide these mandatory requirements to our members, I think the response from the government would be the lack of resources. So we need to, I think, to come to the drawing table, to be consulted. That will be our desire, to be consulted and see how do we get around these challenges.
Well, in case you are joining us, we are discussing issues of disability and elections. My guest on the program is coming from ZAFOD, Mr. Misheki Mutamba. We are actually going to also address one important issue. That is, you touched on it a bit, but I think the issue of violence overall, how would it affect turnout in terms of especially persons with disabilities? I understand the persons with disabilities are also in abundance in the country. There's quite a population is quite significant, over 1 million, according to the Zambia Statistics Agency. So I just want to also get your perspective regarding how this violence we are witnessing now, if it worsens as we go towards the poll day, how would it limit your members in terms of exercising their right to vote?
Thank you so much. Persons with disabilities come with various types of disabilities. Some are physical, others are sensory. Now, when we talk about sensory, hard of hearing, like we talked, or completely unable to hear, those we commonly call the deaf. Those who have visual impairment or partial sight, those who are totally blind, they can't see anything. Then the mental or psychosocial impairment. So all these impairments, affect the way persons with disability interact with society. And that's why earlier on I said, in Zambia, if you walk through a city, you hardly see persons with disabilities. Why? Because they are excluded by all these barriers. Apart from what I mentioned earlier, they are not provided with human development services, but they also face extra barriers. The physical environment itself. I don't know if I found a ramp when I entered your door there. I'm yet to check again, but my memory says there were staircases. So that's already a physical barrier.
We are working on it.
Exactly. I give you an ultimatum of a month to put a ramp there. Yeah, talk about attitudes, but narrowing it down into violence. So imagine what I've described. You are in a wheelchair, or you are walking with crutches, or you are completely blind, you are unable to see, you can't hear, and then you go to a rally, and the violence breaks out. People are butchering each other. like wild animals. How much more are you impacted in terms of danger of being assaulted or even killed? So you are processing these dangers because you watch them on television, you hear them from your family members, you see them in the neighborhood. Yeah, point where you question, are these normal human beings or they're from another planet? Yeah, so we don't seem to accept that we live in a civilized global village where people no longer, reason by picking a panga and cutting the other person's neck, but they engage like you are engaging with me. You are asking my intellect to articulate issues, and then the viewer will be able to see whether I'm a capable leader or not. To lead the people by example and to inspire them, to develop together collectively, to bring all the intelligence of human beings to the table and say, how do all these geniuses, intelligent people help us to develop the country? That's what the rest of the world is trying to do, and we are still buried in its barbaric behavior that belongs to the ancient world. So how do you expect a person who is not seeing or hearing what is going around them to even step out of the door and go and participate in such a process? So that process doesn't seem to belong to civilized people, worse off to persons with disabilities. Yeah.
Yeah, now that like you are, based on your response, this is a right. But do you think issue-based politics would help curtail such activities and create a favorable environment in terms of ensuring that the country holds free and fair elections?
Absolutely. Patrick, how much do you love to watch football?
99%.
How much have you seen people resorting to physical?
About 2%.
You see, so the world, football is so famous about bringing change to the world. Right now, if you are watching the Premier League and other major world leagues, you'd see what they have introduced. No room for racism anywhere. So before they start the match, they kneel down to appeal to the consciences of the players, the officials, and the fans, that this is a beautiful thing that we can enjoy across our races, and we look beautiful when we are in diversity. Okay? Politics have failed. Leadership, the global leadership have failed. Even the most advanced democracies have just failed us. So it's not something that we should labor to convince any normal thinking, right-thinking person that if you are to enjoy something, it has to be in a peaceful environment. If you have to enjoy marriage, if you have to enjoy family life, you have to enjoy work. Yeah, if you have to enjoy sport, except boxing and wrestling. But you have to enjoy sport. Anything that we want to enjoy, food, should be served in a peaceful environment. So why can't those who vie to lead be peaceful? So how do you even begin to conceptualize that you want to lead people to a better world when you are violent? Yeah. So this conversation for me is very strange, because we should have been more civilized at this stage in our governance process.
Interesting. Now, in Zambia, you cannot talk about disability issues without talking about the Zambia Agency for Persons with Disabilities. Now, I want to find out, how is the relationship between ZAFOD and ZAPID?
Yes, it's a very important question once again you have asked. Of course, all your questions are very important today and always, but this particular one is so important in the sense that even when we go on the ground to meet our members across the country, this question comes up, the difference between ZAPID and ZAFOD. So with the wider media coverage, I think it's important for us to address it. Now, ZAPID, the best way to describe ZAPID is to compare it to PACRA. Yeah, PACRA registers and regulates business in Zambia. So ZAPID is also a government department that registers and regulates the work of organizations for persons with disabilities. We call them OPDs or DPOs. So formerly DPOs, but now OPDs. Why the change? We are trying to change anything that degrades persons with disabilities. We no longer say a disabled person. We say a person with a disability. So we want to see the person first before we see the disability, because it's just an impairment. Today I have no disability, anything can happen to me tomorrow. If I have a broken arm, do I cease to be a complete human? I just have an impairment. So even organizations that are championing the affairs or the well-being of persons with disabilities, we don't call them DPOs, disabled people's organizations. No, we don't want to emphasize the disability. We say organizations of persons with disability, or you can even say persons with impairment. Okay, so ZAPID, in short, registers and regulates these organizations, which are NGOs in nature, non-government organizations, and they are civil society. Yeah, in the sense that they are not governmental, they are not state actors, they are non-state actors or NGOs. So ZAFOD is a non-governmental organization. ZAPID is a government department under the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services that is mandated to register and regulate our work as NGOs in the disability sector.
Now, help me respond to these questions that we've been receiving. There are people who are, like you said, anyone is a potential person.
It's potentially a person with a disability.
Yes, like eventualities like accident
yes.
will occur. So we want to get your perspective, where people who are getting into this category of being persons with disabilities, yet they do not understand who is ZAPID, where is ZAPID, where is ZAFOD, who is going to help me advance my challenges as a person with disabilities. How do they get hold of you, and how do you also conduct activities to ensure that you capture new people into the system? Because I've interacted with a number of them that were, for example, victims of gunshots during the gassing incidents, where someone was shot on the leg and they ended up having their legs amputated. Now, but this person has to be rehabilitated and also assisted. Just, I want to find out, how do you help such citizens?
Very, very important, Patrick. So how do we reach out to citizens? As we speak now, this interview is live on our Facebook. It's being streamed. You mentioned at the start of the interview which platforms we are appearing on.
Yes.
So we are reaching out to citizens. So as we discuss this question, citizens hopefully are listening and they can share widely the information that I'm providing just now. So ZAPID is located in all the districts of Zambia. Hopefully, I think there are a few, like Chivombo, if I'm not mistaken, there's no ZAPID office. It can be accessed from Kawe. Now, ZAPID is strategic in persons with disabilities accessing support or help from government and other development agents. Because the first things first, a person with a disability should have an identity card from ZAPID to identify them that this person has a disability and so is is accessible. He's entitled, that's the word I was looking for. He's entitled to services for persons with disabilities. Now, how do you get that ID? First, you go to should be a public health facility where a doctor will examine you and give you a certificate to confirm your disability. Whether it's a visible or invisible disability should be certified by a medical practitioner. Then you take that certification to ZAPID and then they will give you an identity card. So that identity card is very important because then it places you at an advantage to access the available services such as those that you have alluded to, including what we spoke about earlier of the sunscreen for persons with albinism. If you walk into a hospital and you are put in a queue, someone doesn't know that you have albinism, you probably have to show them the ID and say, look, I cannot stand in the queue because I will react to the heat of the sun. Yeah. So ideally, ZAFOD, one of the things we are doing is to raise awareness. Yeah, to raise awareness about the roles of ZAPID and the roles of ZAFOD. So ZAFOD as an NGO, mainly we are building capacity of our OPDs, Organizations of Persons with Disabilities, because we cannot be everywhere in Zambia. There is a lot involved, Patrick, in us arriving at that society that we dream in our vision, where persons with disabilities enjoy their rights and they can reach out for opportunities in society to live a dignified, independent life. Not just to participate in politics alone, not just to be elected as leaders, but to reach their full potential, even if they are not in leadership, you know, to participate in national development in general. Yeah, so we are saying, what about in Kaputa? ZAFOD is not there. Probably ZAPID may also not be there. So we are trying to create networks across the country so that persons in Kaputa can come together and say, we want a representative on the DDMU of the district, so that when they are constructing infrastructure in Kaputa district, we'll be able to advise that ensure it is inclusive, ensure it's disability friendly. Okay, when you are constructing a school, you are talking about other services, health services, educational services, nutritional services, farming, agriculture, any aspect of human endeavor, there should be someone with a disability to guide and say, I think, don't forget to be inclusive, so that persons with disabilities can be brought out of the hiding and meaningfully participate in national development.
Well, our dear viewers, you are watching The Verdict, and this is a governance program that comes at 17:45 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. A number of topics are discussed on this platform so that we can help you make the verdict in as far as implementation of various policies and pronouncements is concerned. We bring out a number of issues so that people, as we go towards the general elections, are able to be aware in as far as issues they need to look out for. What are some of the issues documented in these political party manifestos? We'll be hosting a number of stakeholders here. We've hosted the Disability Rights Watch, we've hosted FODEP, we've hosted the Operation Young Vote, the Media Liaison. All these stakeholders have brought out a number of issues in as far as ensuring an inclusive society is concerned, and also ensuring that the forthcoming general elections are held in a free and peaceful environment. And ours as Camnet TV is to ensure that we create that platform for everyone so that people are able to engage and dialogue, and also as well as sell out their ideas in terms of what they want to achieve, provided they are given a chance to govern the country, to serve as leaders. What will they do for various stakeholders, including persons with disabilities, whom we are discussing today on the program. Now, going on with the program, we also look at this other important aspect. What should be the role of the media, civil society organizations, and the church in terms of ensuring that the country holds a free and fair elections that is going to ensure that no one is a disadvantage when it comes to exercising their right to vote?
Yeah, I think the role of the media in the governance system of Zambia, the electoral processes, and in development in general, you know, I think most people have come to realize that the media are the center of a peaceful environment, a peaceful nation, a peaceful dispensation of democracy and governance and development. Yeah, because right now we are on a media platform, and people are listening. Okay, so media, I think there have been calls from every corner of society that let media be truthful, let media stick to their ethics, yeah, of informing, educating, and entertaining in a truthful way. And leave it to the players, okay, than to manipulate the game. Yeah, that's what I would say. If media were to do that, I think it would be a completely different society altogether. And whether it's development or politics or other, you know, governance processes, I think people would be willing to participate freely, because they know that I think media is playing its dignified role. Yeah, I think we can cite a number of examples in Eastern Europe, Kosovo, and the Rwanda here next door, how media just set a country on fire, and precious lives were lost. Yeah.
Hello, you are through to the program. May we have your name and where you're calling us from?
I am Kanyanta. I'm calling from Freeland.
Okay, thank you for calling. You can go ahead and pass your contribution.
I am actually very impressed with my brother's contribution towards the topic concerning persons with disabilities.
Okay, interesting.
Sir, I would like to comment on my concern every day that I have moved around, either public places or non-governmental places on the Copper Belt in particular. Most of them are not structured to support the activities of people with disabilities. In fact, the environment has not been very inclusive, including government officers.
Yeah.
One of them is the Zanaco office, Atlas Mara. In fact, most of, including many shops in Mufila and the Popeye. So I have been concerned with I have been wondering, why do people ignore that persons with disabilities have also the right to enjoy facility or any other thing because of the inhibiting structure. And the other thing is concerning public schools, where most teachers, I stand to be corrected, that though we talk about inclusive education, a lot more needs to be done. I am actually very interested to be challenged because I need to do some study and see how we can overcome. Lastly, I would like to know whether we have the ZAPID office in Mufurila or your organization office. I would be very grateful to work with these organizations. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling, and we value your contribution. Well, there you had, you got it for yourself, and probably would want to just comment about some of the issues he has raised, including the issue of ZAPID and Zafod being in Mufulira.
We do have what we have started creating provincial coordinators, whom we want to slowly help, who can help us slowly to come up with provincial networks. Then we go down to district networks. But from Mufulira in particular, we have a team. I've just forgotten the name of the gentleman there and the team that is helping us. They have been going on radio in Mufulira on inclusion of persons with disabilities in governance and development, and also on MMES itself. Yeah, but what I can advise on ZAPID is that our caller can go to the government offices, even the DC's office, and inquire where ZAPID is located. I would be almost sure that Mufulira should have a ZAPID office, although the one time I visited Mufulira, we did not go to locate where ZAPID is. But I'm almost sure that ZAPID should be in Mufulira. They should have an office there. So the DC's office should be able to advise where the ZAPID office is located, or the Ministry of Community Development. Actually, ZAPID falls under the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services.
They should have a department
as a department. So if the best, probably not even the DC's, probably to go to the Social Welfare or Community Development office within. Normally, they are housed together with the DC's.
Within the district
administration. Within the district administration, you find that they are housed together. So it's very important that our brother access that office.
And he brought out a number of issues as we discussed, issues of accessibility.
Exactly.
And he's been through to various places and issues we have talked about. He has experienced most of the things on the ground.
Absolutely. We have had cases where a person with I'll give you a typical example. We visited Mwinilunga in January, and we visited the district health office, and we were seated in that audience. There was the district health director, and we told him that when we were coming to your office, we found a poster by the gate which said, "These persons with disabilities are not welcome here." He was shocked because he had never written such a poster. So he didn't understand what we were trying to say. Then we explained that starting from the gate down to the office here, there's no provision for persons with disabilities to access your office. So imagine the entire Mwinilunga district. The person with a disability would not even dare or dream to come and meet the district health director. What type of a society is that? And that's when he saw that the poster is invisible. But us, who are fighting for the rights of persons with disabilities, we can immediately see. This time, every building I enter, that's the first thing I look at. How accessible is the building? Even when I was invited to government complex, I found 8 staircases to the ladies' toilet. And I said, if I came with my aunt on a wheelchair, how would she access these facilities? And I was told she has to go on a lift upstairs. That's exclusion. But let me talk about inclusive education. So, excuse me. So when we talk about inclusive education from the ZAFOD perspective, we are trying to appeal to the stakeholders, particularly government in the education sector, to begin to cut back on special schools and begin to increase on inclusive schools. So an inclusive school is a school where a child with a disability and a child without a disability sit in one class and learn. But for that to happen, the teacher should have been educated or trained, to identify children with special education needs and manage them so that they are learning, simultaneously together. Now, what it does is it sends the right signal to children before their perceptions are built that disability is human diversity. And so we can learn and grow together, interact. And that's very important for a child with a disability, to appreciate that they are just human like anybody else. And so they will grow to compete favorably for opportunities in society because of an inclusive environment. But you need the right type of materials, the right type of infrastructure, and the right type of teachers, and the right type of the community to support this child with a disability to interact and learn just like a child without a disability.
Oh, your concluding remarks?
My concluding remark is that the welfare of persons with disability in Zambia is not a ZAFOD game alone. It is the concern of every meaning Zambian. Yes, it's a collective responsibility. So we appeal to all well-meaning Zambians with the consciences of a human that together we can create an inclusive environment. Whether you are owning a hotel, whether you are owning a hospital, whether it's a school, whether it's a television, we want to see sign language interpreters on your screen there. As a commitment to creating an inclusive society. Thank you.
Well, we would like to thank you for finding time to interact with our viewers.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here once again.
Well, our dear viewers, we've come to the end of the program. But remember to join us as we come with another interesting topic on the verdict. We'll come back to your screens on Thursday and Friday. This has been Patrick Soko, your host, and I've been hosting the Zafford Programs Manager, Mr. Mishek Mutamba. Until next time, stay tuned.